So I have a few pieces of dating advice that I absolutely hate. And probably one of my top pieces of dating advice that I hate is just be confident. Like, okay, whilst we all know that being confident is an attractive quality and it's also a very useful quality because it's the one that helps you to go out there and take action. I mean, hello, people. Confidence isn't something that's easy to switch on. So instead, today, we're going to focus on how you can start to build your confidence up in a small way. And I'm also going to look at a different way you can think about rejection. Yeah, I said it, it's a horrible word. It's probably one of the biggest factors that will stop you from taking the action that you want, is that fear of rejection. So I'm going to be giving you a bit of a mindset shift in this section about how to move past it. So to start with, let's look at a simple way to build confidence. So as I said earlier, I really think that confidence
Is competence. It's it's that idea.
you that it's that idea that you have been doing the same things. It's like you're doing this thing every day, and because of that, you feel really comfortable. You feel like you've got this in the bag, you know what you're doing. So when it comes to our dating life, instead of thinking about big goals like find a partner or
Instead, what we want to do is we want to boil it down to very small action steps that you can start to take really consistently. So it's like one of those things. It's a bit like when it talks about coming to building your confidence, it's a bit like doing, I don't know, a daily press up for your dating life. So what we want to do is
a small action you can take every day to get towards your goals. So if your goals are that you want to find a partner, what are some action steps that will help towards that? Is it that you start sending a daily first message to people? Is it that you suggest video dates more regularly? Is it that you every every week you have a polish up on your online dating profile? Perhaps you get some new pictures and perhaps you have a rewrite of your profile. I want you to notice when it comes to these confidence building actions, which could also be, by the way, could also be saying no. That could be a confidence building action for you. All of these confidence building actions, they don't actually require anybody else to make them work. It's just you. So to build your confidence, it's not about getting a particular result or outcome with somebody else. It's about how can you every day, how can you show up and take these actions that are going to help to move you forwards in your dating life. So the second thing that's linked to this is how can you take actions in the form of baby steps? How can you very gently start to stretch your comfort zones? So
comfort zone, I guess, is where we feel comfortable. And in an ideal world, to get a bit better with the dating thing, I'd want you to feel comfortable initiating those messages. I want you to feel comfortable asking somebody out on a video date. Dare I say it? I'd want you to feel comfortable. Actually, perhaps I want you to feel comfortable with being able to make eye contact with someone that you think is attractive, that you see
in the summer. So when we think about it, it's about instead of focusing on the big goal, whether that's you see a
attractive person across the beer garden and you want to say hello to them, that goal right now might feel too big. Instead, however, you wind that back to a smaller goal. Instead of walking over to someone and approaching them, could you perhaps smile at them and make some eye contact? Likewise, if your ultimate goal is to perhaps find a relationship, what's the smallest first step that you can take towards that today? Is it sending that first message? Is it being bold and asking someone for that video date? So instead of thinking about the big goal, which can feel a bit overwhelming, you instead really want to bring it back to what's that small little action that you can do today. Because here's the funny thing, if you can take the small action, if you can hold eye contact with someone you find attractive, if you can send that first message, every time you do that, it helps to actually broaden your comfort zone and you start to have this newfound confidence in yourself. It's like, wow, I did that thing and I survived. So that's what we want. We want you to be taking these small little risks and succeeding at them. And succeeding doesn't mean you get an outcome from the other person, it means you take the action. That's like a massive win. Okay, so I know what you're going to say, and this brings me neatly onto my third point. You're going to say, Haley, that sounds great, but what's stopping me from taking action, what's stopping me from asking that person out right now is I am terrified of being rejected. Now, rejection is just it's just one of those most horrible feelings. And again, just like how I said, everybody has that inner critic. Guess what? Everybody feels rejection too. Everyone has experienced it. And it's a really, really difficult emotion, but it's one that I don't want to stop you from you being able to go out there and take the action that you want. So, a lot of the time, that fear of rejection can feel so overwhelming that you just feel like you can't take that small action because you're so worried about what's going to happen next. And there's two things that you can do. Just to begin with, there's a lot of things you can do to help to feel different about rejection, but two really simple ones. First of all, I want you to change your intention. So, say you did see that attractive person at the beer garden. Don't know why I've chosen a beer garden, but I have. If you did see that attractive person at the beer garden, your intention shouldn't be, I'm going to ask them out on a date. Your intention could be, I'm just going to start a conversation and be social and see where this goes. So often, by making your intention smaller, your target easier, it will feel less overwhelming to get started. The second shift you can make to help you start to feel a bit differently about that fear of rejection is just to remember, and trust me, I'm saying this as a dating coach, a lot of the time, things that we perceive as rejection aren't in fact rejection at all. So, a classic example with this would be that you send a message to someone on Match and they don't get back to you. Now, whilst that inner critic, that pesky inner critic might be telling you that there was something wrong with your message, or your photos aren't good enough, or people won't like you, or all of that rest of that junk that we're going to get rid of, whilst your inner critic might be saying that, the truth of the matter could be they might not have even read the message. They may have read it and forgotten to reply. They may have had something come up in their life that you don't know about that's really distracted them, and they will write you back in 48 hours. Or even if they have read that message and thought, you know what, actually, I don't think we're a match.
And that's such a bad thing. Perhaps when someone doesn't get back to us, another way.
Could be that they're actually just clearing some room, they're getting out the way for all the people who will get back to you. So I really want you to start to think differently about rejection. And I know this can feel like a bit of a stretch right now, but as I said, I've got this really cool exercise coming up in our final section, which I promise you is going to help you to feel differently about things. So if you're anything like I am, if when you have those fears of rejection, you find those thoughts are just going round and round in your mind, like I used to get woken up in the middle of the night worrying about things. If that's you, I've got a great exercise that's going to help to just to your mind, to that inner critic, and start to build out your inner cheerleader and your inner champion. So, this is my fourth pointer around how you can develop your confidence, which is just, with that inner critic, we're going to start to shush them and we're going to start to build your inner champion. So, our inner champion is telling us all the reasons why we can do things and all the reasons why we're doing well. And the funny thing is, our inner critic and our inner champion or cheerleader, neither of them is more right or more true than the other. When someone doesn't get back to your message, whilst your inner critic will be like, no, there you go, you see, people don't like you, you're rubbish, that message sucked. Your inner champion might be like, you know what, well done for sending that message. It's really good that, you're being proactive. In fact, I also like that message. I thought the joke you said was really funny. Perhaps that person's just going to take a bit longer to get back to you, which is cool. And if they don't, you know what? You're going to find somebody else who thinks that your sense of humor, your vibe, and your personality is awesome. And the funny thing about those two, I guess, very different ways of looking at things is neither is more true or more real than the other. It's just about what we choose to decide about ourselves. And I think when you're thinking about your life and the experiences that you have, particularly in the area of dating, you have got to be your own champion. You've got to choose that really positive story around your dating life. It's like you're writing your own history of your dating life. And I want it to be awesome. I want you to be telling yourself why you can do things and why you did things well. Which brings me on to my exercise of this section. Now, this is a great exercise if your inner critic gets just too much airtime and we need to start building up your inner champion instead. So, all I want you to do is reflecting on perhaps the last 6 or 12 months, maybe even just the past week if you've had a busy week with dating here at Match. I want you to write down all the things that you are doing well. That's right. I want you to write down what you're doing well in your dating life. So, what has gone right? I want you to acknowledge your wins. Now, again, that win doesn't have to be that someone gave you their phone number. Your win could be that you sent the message. Your win could be that you rewrote your profile. Your win could be that you said no and saved some of your energy levels. Your win could be that you're still hanging on in there and you're still going out there and you're still dating and you're still putting yourself out there and you're still making yourself vulnerable. These are all wins. And sometimes, I suppose, whether it's like a job interview or I guess when I do like a broadcast or a coaching session like this, or perhaps when you have a date, what happens the second that date ends, your inner critic is going to want to have a party and they're going to want to tell you all the things that didn't go well. So instead, I really want you to challenge yourself now in this moment. And also, after you have a date, write down and tell yourself what went well. Even if you didn't fancy them, even if you don't want to see each other again, still tell yourself, what did you do well? Okay, so now we're talking. I'm glad that we get that exercise down because it's time for our next survey. So, are you ready to click on that little plus button and give me your survey answers? So, we're going back to the beer garden here, people. And the survey question I have for you now is if you did see someone you were attracted to in real life, would you approach them? Would
Saw in real life. So we're imagining you're at the beer garden, you've seen someone really nice that you'd like to speak to. Would you actually go over and talk to them?
Can you vote for me now? Yes or no? Okay, so while we're getting those survey results in, let's look at the recap and the key messages of this chapter. Okay, so first of all, remember confidence is competence. Competence is confidence. So this means that when you do something regularly, you start to feel more confident about it. Secondly, it's actually good to challenge yourself. You want to stretch those comfort zones and take just a little risk towards your goals. Finally, you want to empower yourself. That inner critic, we're going to shush them. And instead, I want you to really start to develop and listen to your inner champion. Okay, so we have 3 more questions that have come in from you. And I do want to say thank you for sending
Questions in that I had so many good ones. It was genuinely hard to pick which ones to go to this evening. So the first question is,
how do I make my profile better? Okay, so, well, there's lots and lots of things you can do to make your profile better, but in brief, first of all, I would look at your pictures. You ideally want to have at least 3 to 6 high resolution, so that means taken on a nice modern smartphone pictures. Pictures that are taken in natural light will also work well. So you really want to make sure your photos are well lit. Photos that are in the dark, where you have red eye or you're surrounded by a bunch of people, won't work as well as pictures where you're really clearly visible. So perhaps chuck out that picture of you by the pyramids where you're very, very tiny in the picture and instead replace it with a picture where you can be seen really clearly. When it comes to your profile, I really want you to focus on putting your personality into it. A lot of the time, it can be very easy when we're writing to end up writing in a way that's just much more formal than you would normally speak. And I want when someone reads your profile for it to be like they've just sat down and started to chat to you in person. So a really good hack for writing your profile is to actually dictate it to yourself. So instead of writing it, speak it to yourself, record it, and then write those words back down, because you'll often find that how you express yourself and how you speak will come out better, more authentic, and more full of personality. Okay, so the next question that we have coming up. Now, this is another very popular dating question, which is, how do I find the right man? So, first of all, let's look at what we consider to be right. And I would like to say to everyone out there, remember, I kind of think there's more than one right person out there for all of us, which should be good news, right? We don't need to find our, out of, I don't know how many billions of people there are right now, we don't need to find our one soulmate. In fact, there's going to be lots of people that can make you happy. So,
Even if you have it as a daily affirmation, tell yourself, I really, I believe there's lots of great,
quality people out there for me. I think there's lots of people that could be right.
then you really want to focus again on those standards and people's actions. How are they
Showing up for you as someone who is consistent, who's someone who's a good communicator, someone who's clear. Yep, I'm saying those words again, but it really is usually just a case of keeping a very open mind about who it could be that would make you happy, not focusing on a particular type, and really instead looking at how people treat you and prioritize dating people who are really willing to build that bond with you, who are showing up from day one, signed up, ready to be the most amazing partner to you, because that's actually what you deserve and that's what makes someone right. Now, final question. Now, I'm going to say this. I think this is a question which makes me feel like you need to, your inner champion, speak a bit louder, which is what to say to make people interested in you. So, how do we make people interested in us? Well, the funny thing is here, I think a lot of the time it's not about us performing for the other person. It's not about us choosing to talk about topics that we think they'll like or trying too hard to impress someone. You will find the best quality matches for yourself when you actually embrace yourself and think, I'm quite interesting. So perhaps flip this around, and instead of thinking about how you can be interesting to another person, think about what would make the date interesting for you. Are there topics you love to talk about? Is there something that you're really passionate about? Is there something you'd like to share with a person? Is there something that would make a person you feel more attracted to your date? These are all really good questions to ask yourself if you're wondering what to talk about on your dates and how to make your dates interesting. Okay, so we've got the survey results through, and I have to say, I'm not entirely surprised here that most of you wouldn't say hello to that gorgeous stranger in the beer garden. Now, and perhaps when we get to go out there, hopefully in a few weeks' time, perhaps that isn't the right time to say hello to someone, but perhaps you can just start to take that very first step. Perhaps you can hold eye contact, perhaps you can give someone a smile. So that make that your first step. And you know what? If you do that, go home, give yourself a little pat on your back and acknowledge that win. So now we're going to go into our final section where I'm going to be teaching you that exercise about how we can take the voice of that inner critic and shush them, and how we can build up our inner champion.